This share. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another week with Investing Education Academy. So, Leon and I are going to answer a question some of you all have, wrote into us and said, what are futures, and how do they work? So, if you've been wondering, this is a good one for you to listen to. And before we get started, have to say some thank yous. Thank you to everyone who sent in recommendations on what we should talk about. We've taken heed, which is why we're bringing this content to you. And for those of you all who don't think this is actually real and we won't address something that you request, try us, request it, and we will try our best to talk about it. Additionally, for those of you all who are watching, we see your names popping up. If you have a question about the stock market, if you have a question about anything related to finance that we're talking about during the session, ask us. We will do our best to answer questions. This time period is designed not only for you all just to listen to us talk, but for you all to get questions answered. And for you all who are listening to our podcast, go to iaapodcast.com and put your question in the comments. We'll do our best to answer your comments. And again, we won't know what you have questions about if you never tell us. So with that being said, we're going to dive in. Leon's going to tell you why we chose this topic. As I do what I always do, some housekeeping.
Yeah, so the topic today is futures. And as Brent just said, the reason we're doing this topic today is because my man Montes, who's an IA insider member, part of the IA community, he brought this up in the comments of our Facebook group last week regarding another topic. I brought something up. Oh, I know what it was. So it was around, so the reason this topic is even of discussion on people's mind right now, primarily because of the new Bitcoin futures ETF. And that's a mouthful. Some people are like, what the hell are futures? And so we're going to cover that tonight to say, what are futures? What is this Bitcoin ETF that tracks futures, but not necessarily Bitcoin itself? So that's why we're covering this topic tonight. We realize, and I've known this for a while, that a lot of people don't know what futures are. And I actually think that's kind of a good thing because you're going to see tonight why they can be very, very, very dangerous if not used properly. But we're all about education here. We want to bring this knowledge, this information to everyone who follows us. So we're going to be covering just on a very high level. We're not going to go too deep into it because it can get deep, kind of like options. There are many layers to this, but we're going to give a high level description and examples of what futures are.
Yeah, and when we say it's sometimes good that you don't know, we've seen what happens to some people when they get a little bit of information about it and they try to go crazy. And it's a lot of people right now in this whole options ETF marketplace. I don't know if you all are assuming this is like the golden goose, or if you feel like if you're in this ETF by default, you own all of Bitcoin, everything great Bitcoin is going to do. But there's some misconceptions about what it is. So we are definitely going to address it today. And I will I'm doing one more thing, and then Leon, do you want me to put up the slide now?
Yeah, and just kind of on the point Brent said, we did a few weeks ago. We did a live or a podcast here on options, and I kind of went in depth on why when buying options naked, why that's a terrible investment strategy. Like we said, we keep it real here. We're honest. I've lost a lot of money trading options. I've also made a lot of money too, but I cut my teeth on options and futures actually 5 or 6 years ago, and man, I got my tail handed to me. So I know the dangers of buying options naked, as opposed to buying what they call option spreads, just for as an example. But I know the dangers of that. So if you're not familiar with that, go back a few of our podcasts. I think 2 or 3 weeks ago we covered why buying options naked is a bad investment strategy, and then today we're going to cover. And you'll see there's some parallels, and I'll kind of point out some parallels between options and futures, and then we're going to cover futures tonight, kind of why they're what they are and why they can be dangerous. But again, like everything else, if used properly, they can be profitable.
Yep, and I'm sliding this in. Normally we wait to the end. If you all are not part of the IA Crypto Bulls, you have to join. So it's totally your call, and we don't do hard sales here, but I will say, in the last 3 months in that group, we've probably done over 200% rate of return. And it's actually far. If I told you how much the real number is, you probably wouldn't believe me. So I'm not even saying the real number. But so we're just saying over 200%. And for anybody who's like, well, what does that mean? If you put in $100,000, you now have 300,000. Just so you understand what that means. And so you can. Some people still think that it's just not for them, or this cryptocurrency thing is just it's a fad. Leon and I have said a million times. We liken it to if we were alive when the stock market first started and somebody saying, would you like to invest? Who in their right minds would have said no? Imagine being there when Tesla first started, knowing what you know right now about Tesla, and somebody saying, hey, would you like a couple shares? And you were like, well, it's only $12. I don't think it doesn't seem like it'll ever go any higher than that. And that is literally what some people think. They think, oh, already, we're talking like it's only been really a thing since maybe 10 years. People are under the belief that they missed the boat. They're under the belief that, some of these cryptos don't have any further to go. People thought that when Bitcoin was at 35,000. Then they thought it again when it hit 38,000. And then they thought it again when it hit 40. They were like, oh, it'll never go beyond that. So this is all we're going to say.
And I'll just say on that, like, the returns that we're seeing in and this is a side tangent, like we didn't plan to talk about this, but real quick, the returns we're seeing in crypto are ridiculous. And I just want to make the point that we're not inside crypto bulls. We're not investing in what are called S coins, right? S coins, just use your imagination. We're not investing in we're not investing in like crappy coins, in other words, right? So we know us here. I'm all about research. I do deep research before I put my money into anything. We're investing in coins and underlying technology projects that have have real use cases that are being used today, and that a lot of us use ourselves. So and we're still seeing returns, like Brent said, north of 200%. I mean, one of the coins that we just talked about on last Monday, was up 43% today, and that's after being up 14% one day last week. And again, these aren't like the poo coins or a lot of these. And there is a coin called poo coin, by the way.
There is a coin called poo coin.
So they're not coins like that. And I'm not saying you can't make money on those coins, right? Because right now Shiba Inu is going crazy, right? And it really has no use case. We did find out today from talking to some other people earlier that some places are looking to actually accept Shiba Inu, but right now there's really no use case for it. It's just going up because people are buying it. For me, I have a very small position. That's really not my thing. I invest in things that I believe that will have long-term staying power. And like I said, the coins we're investing in are quality coins that have long-term staying power, and we're seeing huge returns. So, yeah, as we always say, if you don't want to join the bulls, join some crypto community, and learn about these things, because now is the time. Because you're not, like Brett said, you're not going to look back and see, if I keep myself today, had I known about Bitcoin back in 2012, I'd heard of it, but I didn't follow up on it. It was trading like $800 then. Now it's 66,000. So that was just an aside. So all right, back to this now. So you got anything else?
No. I mean, that's it. And also, I do also want to say thank you to everyone who stuck with us when we went to the mountains last week, and the reception was a little hazy. It was slow. Some people told me it was slow, but you guys stuck through anyway and told us the content was great. And also for the IEA member who asked me what's wrong with having a savings account. If you have a savings account, you're losing. Not saying anything's wrong with it. I don't want to lose. Some people enjoy losing. I mean, it's something for everybody. But if you are beyond your emergency fund, anything beyond your emergency fund inside of a savings account, for me, and I'm not even saying IEA, this is Brent Simpson talking. Anything beyond emergency money, even for me, I'll put my emergency money in the market, but for any normal person, anything beyond that, I think you are absolutely wasting your money. I think you're going to regret it later on in life. When you finally figure out what happens inside these savings accounts, you're truly going to regret not having made the decision when you listen to us. You won't even keep pace with inflation. So
and yeah, we're doing another side note, but yeah, that's factually true. You're literally losing because inflation this year is running anywhere from 5 to 10%. Like I think I said in the last live or two lives ago or podcast ago, I said, go Google and do research on look how much social security checks this year are increasing, and I think they're increasing by like 5 or 6%. And the reason they're getting higher payouts this year is because inflation is so high this year. So if your money is sitting in a savings account where you're earning 0.05, 0.06%, and inflation is 5-10%, you're literally losing buying power. Not losing money, but you're losing buying power. So the amount of goods that your money can buy are being reduced every day. So that's why we're saying, everyone has to have a rainy day fund, but any of your investment dollars should definitely not be in a savings account.
Yeah, I'm straight saying savings accounts suck. But we're going to dive into the topic today.
Yeah.
Thank you for sticking with us through that. But it was important information. And Leon and I get passionate about this stuff because we're getting you all's emails and texts saying your kids are watching this now, your mom's watching us, your dad's watching. And I mean, it means something to us. And so we don't want to get off air and not address, these issues. They're issues. They're absolutely issues because you shouldn't be doing it. So that's why we do it. All right. So what are futures and how do they work? Leon, please take it away.
Yeah. So, all right. So like I said earlier, the reason futures are kind of in the headlines now, the reason we're doing this, and again, shout out to Monteith. The reason we're doing this is because there's a futures Bitcoin ETF. A lot of people right now are all excited about, this Bitcoin BTF is coming, a pure play. The futures is not a pure play ETF based on Bitcoin because it's based on the futures that somewhat track Bitcoin. So I'm just gonna go down these 5 bullets. Then I'm gonna give like a real world example of what futures are. But just kind of listen through this. So futures are derivative. So bullet 1 is futures are derivative financial contracts that obligate 2 parties to transact at a predetermined future date and price. Point 2 is there are typically futures contracts for every month of the year. So if you say you want to, and an example I give in a minute will kind of explain it. So let me actually keep going. This allows people to speculate on what they figure the future price of any asset is going to be throughout a whole year. Futures this is the biggest thing I said earlier. Futures contracts are highly leveraged. That's what makes them dangerous. And like I said, when I go through my example, you'll see how. And the primary, so when futures were first started, they were primarily for commodities producers. People like, and I'm gonna stick with oil because that's what I know. So think of people like ExxonMobil, Shell, companies like that actually produce oil, take out the ground and turn into gas. For them, futures contracts for a way for them to hedge their product. So what that means is, if you sell something, you want the price to go up, right? That's what they do. They want the price of oil to go up. But let's say for whatever reason, oil is going to go down. The way they would hedge themselves, they would sell futures contracts. Because when you sell a contract, that's called going short. And when you go short, you actually make money when the price of something drops. So since oil producers are inherently long, they want the price to go up. If it's starting to drop on them or reduce in price, they'll sell futures contracts to kind of balance it out and to take less of a loss. You're not really ever going to cover all your losses with any sort of hedge, but it does, it helps cushion the blow. So
and
futures
real
primarily
quick,
made for hedging. Go ahead.
When he says that they're buying these contracts, hoping in case the futures contracts or they're not making money, if the price slips, they actually make money on the dips, which means that the money they normally make when it grows, or the money they're losing now because it's not growing, is being offset by the money they're making from it going down. And that's how they cover or hedge their position. And that's when we say hedge, that's what it means. I know a lot of you all, I've actually been in rooms sometimes where people are talking about hedging and they really don't know what it means. And I've been in conversations where people are talking about hedging and the other person listening maybe feels weird about asking, so they never ask. So we're telling you, it simply means that their normal way they make money is when whatever they're underlying, whenever that thing they're investing in is making money. That's normal.
By going up.
Edge. Go ahead, Lee.
Yeah, no, yeah. So yeah, just by so like I said, oil producers are inherently long. They inherently want the price of oil to go up. So what they'll do, the way they'll hedge, if the price of oil is going down, instead of just taking massive losses as the price drops, they'll sell a futures contract that's called going short. And when you short something, you profit when the price of that asset goes down. So that's called a hedge. So they're hedging their inherent long position because they sell oil. They hedge it by selling a futures contract. When the price goes down, they profit from it, and that helps kind of cushion the blow. Okay, so that's what futures contracts primarily initially were for. They were for commodity producers to hedge their inherent long positions. So I'm gonna give an example, right? So we kind of went through what it is, kind of a high level. So an example is, and again, I'm gonna use oil because I'm familiar with oil. So let's just say oil is trading at $50 per barrel, right? $50. Let's say that I'm saying for whatever reason, do my research or I have a gut feeling that I feel at the end of this year in December, oil is going to be above $50, right? So that's the way I feel. What I can do then, I can then go out and buy the December futures contract. Now, remember, I think it's bullet. The second bullet says how there are futures contracts that cover every month of the year. So you can buy a futures contract for next month, this month, 2-3 months out in the future. Whatever month you want, you can buy a futures contract for that. So if I said to myself, okay, hey, boom, I feel like oil is going to be above $50 by the end of December, I'll go out and buy the December futures contract, right? Now, so it's a little different stock. You're not so the price of oil is $50. You're not going to pay $50 for the futures contract, and I'm going to explain why that is. So inside of every futures contract, inside every oil futures contract, there are 1,000 barrels of oil, right? 1,000 barrels inside of a futures contract. So then what you do is you take that $50 price that oil is trading at, you multiply it by those 1,000 barrels, and you get $50,000, right? So the value of this position is $50,000. Now you don't have to put up 50 grand to get in this position, but you have to put up a percentage of that to get in this position. So let's just say in this example, you have to put up 10%, right? So you have to put up $5,000. So think about that. $5,000 is controlling $50,000 worth of oil. That's huge, right? That's it. And that's why I said that the leverage is massive. We're talking about that's a 10x leverage in this contract, right? So now let's fast forward to the end of December, and let's say oil is now trading at 60,000, right? So what happened? I just made $10,000 because I bought it. I bought it when oil was at $50. Now it's trading at $60. The contract is now worth $60,000. I'll then sell that contract for 60 grand, and I'll net my $10,000, right? But think about it. Only amount you had to put up for that was $5,000. So you just doubled your money in 2 months, right? Great. People love it. Like people are like, oh, futures is the greatest thing ever. Works the exact same way the other way. If the price goes down, right? Then again, it's all about risk. People don't think about this. If the price goes from 50 to 40, right? Remember, you bought this thing for $50,000. The value was $50,000, representing $50,000. It's now worth $40,000. So you now lost $10,000. So you have to reckon that so let's say December comes, it's trading at 40. You're going to close out this contract by selling it. You've now lost 10 grand, right? So that's what I was saying. When futures are highly, highly leveraged, that's what I mean by that. And people love that leverage. Leverage is great when it's working for you. It is horrific when it goes against you, and it's kind of similar in options too. We covered that last time, but that's what we mean by futures contracts are heavily leveraged. So just kind of simple recap: all futures are they kind of do what they say. It allows you to bet on the future price of typically a commodity. Now you can actually do Forex and now Bitcoin. And I'm not going to get too deep into it now because it gets really technical. That's a very, very high level of futures. There's a whole lot more to it, but typically futures are not good investments either. I don't want to go too deep, but just know that the futures contract typically does not track the underlying asset one for one. So if Bitcoin is up, say 10%, you may see that the futures contract is only up 3%. And then vice versa, if say Bitcoin is down 10%, the futures contract may only be down 5%. So it's not a one-to-one. And then futures contracts get really expensive if there's something that's called a roll, where you can take the current contract and move it out to the next. So if we're in November, say for whatever reason you want to extend it, you can then go into the December contract. When you do that, it's actually expensive. So what's called the roll will actually eat away at your profits. So and that's getting a little deep, but futures can be very, very complicated. They can be very expensive if not used right, and they can be very dangerous if that leverage is used against you. So if you ever heard the term futures, this is basically what futures are. The new Bitcoin ETF futures is out now. There are two of them that are live now. Like I said, they're not going to track Bitcoin one for one, but it does give you some loose ability to trade Bitcoin, but definitely don't look at it as tracking Bitcoin one to one. And if you're down in a futures ETF, if it's just really hard to come back based on, like I said, based on that roll that happens every month. And like I said, that gets a little wonky. But I'm not like this. I'm not a fan of ETFs that track futures because I know long term they don't track it. And you might as well just buy the actual asset. You might as well just buy Bitcoin to actually get that true one to one versus something that's going to lag the underlying. So that's what futures contracts are.
Yeah, and just to give you all a visual of that, imagine if you're chasing something, a ball, a car, a bicycle, a friend of yours,
a person.
Yeah, if you're chasing somebody, it's one thing that's guaranteed to happen. You're staying behind them because you're chasing them. So when you're in these, you can never beat them. And some of you, I know some of you all are buying into these ETFs with the thought that you're going to somehow beat Bitcoin. And I mean, and I'm not judging anybody. I know some people are new investors, so they may not understand it. It's a tracking mechanism by default, by design. But you can't beat Bitcoin if you're in the futures ETF. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, and you're not really even gonna match Bitcoin if you're in a futures ETF. And not saying there won't be times where yes, you see, oh, Bitcoin's up 5%. Okay, the ETF is up 5% too. Great, I'm matching it. There will be times that happen, but over the long term, especially if you hold it for like months and months and months, because remember, what it's actually tracking is the futures contracts. Every month, there's something called a roll that's expensive to that futures contract, and that'll hit your profits. So if you're holding this thing long, like ETFs that track futures should never be held long term. They should be held for a month, maybe two. But the longer you hold it, you're gonna see that your profits relative to the underlying asset are gonna be less and less and less, and you're not gonna keep up with that percentage gain. Bitcoin's up 10%. You're gonna see you're only up 5, 6, maybe 4 to 6%, that sort of thing. So they're definitely not long term. They're not to be held for long term either.
Yep. So we hope this was helpful to everybody today. Leon, we should probably do one on what ETFs are because there's also a lot of misunderstandings around ETFs. I know we talked about it before, but I think this is a good one to follow up this.
Right.
So if you all are out there and you want to hear us talk about something in particular, please contact us to let us know because otherwise we won't know. And for those of you all who think, how can I get in touch with you all? You can actually join Investing Education Academy at www.ieanow.com. Or if you want to join our Facebook group, you can go to Facebook and type in Investing Education Academy, and we will pop up. And feel free to join our community. We are growing pretty fast now, so it's our thought that this information is actually important to you all. But we need to hear your voices. We need to know what you want to hear specifically about finances and about money and investing. So, Leon, anything before we go?
Nah, that was it. I say if you want to dabble in Bitcoin, I would say just buy Bitcoin. Like just buy, actually open up a wallet and actually buy the underlying itself because you're basically shortchanging yourself in the long term if you buy a Bitcoin futures ETF because, like I said, it doesn't track it one to one. Now there is once a pure play Bitcoin ETF comes out, that's buyable. Like that will track Bitcoin one to one, and that's something you can definitely buy. That will follow it verbatim. But that the SEC is dragging their feet on that. I mean, they've been dragging their feet on this for like 2 years because they're afraid of the volatility in Bitcoin. So there's rumor that it could come out early next year. Who knows? People have been applying for it for the past 2 years. Nothing's happened yet. So yeah, I would just encourage everyone if you want to get exposure to Bitcoin, just open up a wallet and or not even a wallet, just go to Robinhood. Go to Robinhood, you can buy Bitcoin directly there. And that's a way better way to track it or invest in it than buying the Bitcoin ETF.
And don't forget, similar to the ability to buy fractional shares with cryptocurrency, if your big thought was, I don't have enough to buy Bitcoin, you do not have to buy an entire coin. whatever you have available to you is the percentage that you can buy of the coin. So, if you have $6,000, you're getting about 10% of the coin. But that percent stays the same as Bitcoin goes up and goes down. So whatever you can afford, if it's $500, if it's $200, if it's $10,
it's $50. Like,
yeah,
whatever you got. You
still want to have. It's still growing. It's a high probability that it will still grow faster than your bank account. And
guaranteed.
If you have a bank account, you just really got to catch up to speed. Like, I feel like the world is moving away from it, and we're going to drive this point home as much as possible because it's what's killing us. This belief that our money is safe inside of a savings account is asinine. And yeah,
and I just say last point, not even just savings account, but anything that's interest bearing. Because interest, like CDs, money markets,
traditional interest bearing accounts.
Yeah, traditional interest bearing. Yeah, because again, interest rates are basically at zero. I mean, they're a little above 1% now, depending on what you're investing in, but they're basically at zero. I mean, you're getting less than 1%. So if it's a CD, if it's a money market, if it's a savings account, you're losing money every day because again, inflation is pushing 5 to 10%. So I mean, you can do everything we're talking about every day on here, every week on here, you can do from your phone, literally do from your phone. So there's really no excuse. Like you said, we can go in as little as $5 in the stock market, as little as $5 in crypto too.
Yeah. So everybody, thank you for being with us. Join us in our Facebook group. Please become part of the paid community. We're putting a lot of good information in. As always, we will put our stock picks. One will be inside of the Facebook group. The other will be inside of the paid platform. So those of you all who have questions, feel free to contact us directly. And thank you for being with us.